Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're good. Hope you're doing well. You got two of us today.
Yeah.
Pastor Carey and myself, 2 for 1. Hopefully it's a good thing for you.
That's a good deal.
That's a good deal. Yeah. Ooh,
Yep,
is that me?
We're standing in the wrong spot.
We're doing something. That's you. It's all you.
It's probably me.
Hey, we are going back a little bit. If you remember, beginning of July or June, we did a series called Before, and we 3-week series, and we got into some other things. And Before is all about our vision here of being for Spotsy. And for those last 2 months, we've done several different things, and we sort of want to summarize that for you. It doesn't end Before, it doesn't end for Spotsy, because for Spotsy is ongoing. It's a year round. And so what we're talking about today isn't something's coming to an end. We just want you to know what all you've done in the last 2 months and where we're at and why we do this and why we do it year round, not just for 2 specific months in the summer. So over the last several weeks, many of you were involved in service projects around the community. Man, we really appreciate all you did there. I mean, it ranged from yard cleanup to providing school supplies, all kinds of things that you did. We encourage all of you to participate in giving $39.95 to our ministry partners, and many of you did that. And it's not too late to still sign up for a service project. It's not too late to still give $39.95 if you missed that, to go towards our ministry partners. You can still do that out there in the lobby. It's not too late to get your For Spotsy t-shirt. We have that out in the lobby as well. We don't have certain sizes now, large, extra large, and 2X, the smalls and mediums have gone away, but it's not too late to do any of that stuff because it's always ongoing. So please understand, we're not ending anything today. We just want to talk about what you've done to this point in time. And I want to start off by just telling you a quick story, if I could. It's about 16, 17 years ago. I had a late football practice, and I came home, and my kids were home, my wife was working, and so the kids' grandmother were there watching them. Christy's mom was watching them. And I came in and kind of getting things put back together. You know how that is as a dad. You come in and try to get things straightened up before the wife gets home, right? Make sure the house is clean. So I was doing that. But it was time for the younger ones to go to bed. And my youngest daughter, Lindy, asked that her grandmother would put her to bed instead of me. And so the grandmother, before she left, went upstairs and was going to tuck Lindy in. And it wasn't long after they were up there that I heard this urgent call. Hey, Chris, come here. Chris, come here. And he wasn't screaming at the top of your lungs or anything like that, but I could tell something's not quite right. And so I went up there, and Christy's mom told me there was a quarter on the stand on the table beside Lindy's bed, and it's gone, and now Lindy is having difficulty breathing. She thinks maybe she swallowed that quarter, and it got stuck. And so I'm looking at her, and I don't know anything to do medically, really, you know what I'm saying? So we're trying to figure this thing out as a dad who knows nothing. And I could tell that she's struggling breathing, and I'm watching her. I'm trying to talk to her. Did you swallow the quarter? What's wrong? And then she begins to drool, that type of thing. Something's not right. And so I just pick her up. I pick her up and I run to the car and get her in the car. And just down the road is one of those emergency places that you can drop in on. And so I have her. We get there. We pull in the park, and I'm screaming in there and grab her out. And I go into the waiting room. I'm carrying her. And we get in there, and I tell her, hey, my daughter's having difficulty breathing. I need somebody to come help me, please. And of course, what do? They give you 20 pieces of paper to fill out, right? And I'm like, man, just get her to breathe, then we'll fill out the paperwork later. So I'm signing names just real quick, sign over my life. And then someone comes out, medical personnel comes out, and I'm excited they're there, and I begin to hand her to them, and I pull back. I said, wait a minute, I'm trying to figure out who this person is. Like all of you, I need to know, are they Republican or Democrat, right? I can't trust my loved one to someone who votes a certain way, right? Who has a certain philosophy. I need to know, where are you in this, right? In all honesty, though, could I care less? I could care less at the moment about their politics, right? I could care less. It's about their competency, right? Can they handle the situation? It was an emergency, and I want them to take care of it, right? So the politics was out the window. Let's just take care of my daughter. But the reality is, are we not there sometimes when we feel that we're kind of in that spot as a country, as a community, that we're more worried about someone's opinion than what's really the needs that are going on around us? I mean, if somebody has a need, wait a minute, how do you vote? What's your philosophy? What do you think? That will determine whether I help you or not, really? I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right? And it's a sad state, to be honest with you. In fact, when you turn on the TVs, you think about the world around us, there's climate change, there's not climate change. Prices of goods are going up, prices of goods are coming down. They're coming down now. The gas prices are going up, they're going to come down. We have indictments, we have this stuff and that stuff. borders and no borders, and we just have all this stuff. There's local elections coming up, right? And we see all these signs now. And it's almost like our country's in an emergency. That's what it seems like. It almost seems like we're in this emergency. But here's the thing. Here's the deal. We don't have to solve that problem, right? I mean, think about it. We really don't need to solve that problem. I turn on the news and I hear those things, and I hear the people in the news say, well, it's never been so bad before in our life. Well, I'm a history teacher, and I think, have you not heard of the Great Depression? I'm a history teacher. I said, have you not heard of a thing called the Civil War, in which 800,000 people lost their lives, plus all the disease? Have you not heard of those things? And then I also think of the spiritual community. He says, well, God is trying to teach America a lesson. God is trying to teach America a lesson. Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm not qualified to tell you what God is doing or not doing in America. I'm not qualified to do that. But I feel confident in telling you this, that as followers of Jesus, we have a responsibility. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're not a follower of Jesus, if you don't believe who Jesus is, then to be honest with you, I don't have something for you today. I want you to listen, but I don't necessarily have something for you because I'm not expecting you to do what Jesus did if you're not a follower of Jesus. And if you call yourself a Christian, but all you're worried about is, okay, these are the 5 things that I'm going to believe, and I'm going to go to my deathbed believing those things, but they're not going to cause me to do anything, I don't know if I have anything for you either. But if you are a follower of Jesus, then I think what Pastor Carey and I have for you today is something that we need to understand, because we have a responsibility to do something. Now, the good news is we don't have to solve the world's problems. Mm-hmm. We don't have to solve the problems, because I'll be honest, I can't take care of my own problems sometimes, right? But I still have a responsibility. Here's what happens when we see all this going on around us. We think, well, I'm going to do nothing. I'm not going to do anything. There's too much going on. So I won't do anything. But yet, we'll still sit there and we're complaining about everything, right? So we won't do anything, but yet we're complaining about everything. And we just want you to know today that as a Jesus follower, that is not an option for us. That is not an option for those who say, I want to follow Jesus because I want to help bring his kingdom into this world that I live. I want my life to reflect his kingdom. And if that's us, we have a responsibility. There are no ands, ifs, or buts about it. We have a responsibility. That is not an option. And that responsibility begins with one word. Our responsibility to do something begins with one word.
And just like Pastor Chris just talked about, there is a lot of knowledge and information that's right at your fingertips. I mean, anybody could pull out your phone right now and find out what is the newest news that's happening out in Hawaii. What is going on with needs in our community? You may get the Fredericksburg email coming to you, like shocks and surprises about things. We get text message notifications. You name it, you have it easily, quickly, from all over. In the past, that wasn't the case. This hasn't always been so easy to have knowledge and information. There's honestly almost no way to escape it. These days, we know about needs in our communities. We hear and we see, and we know there are people in our neighborhoods who don't know Jesus. We know that there is poverty. We know that there is illness and pain and addiction and homelessness and abuse. We know it, and we have the information about it. But the word that we're talking about here that we want us to be thinking about is, are we aware? Do we have an awareness? And I feel like Jesus really set the example for us of the difference of going from mere knowledge on something to awareness. Awareness extends knowledge from information, statistics, and facts, and it goes to perceiving and feeling and empathizing, and all of those things often lead us to responding, to taking action. And so this really makes me think of a time that we find in Luke chapter 8. And this is when Jesus heals a woman who had been suffering from bleeding for 12 years. Now, this is a long time. And because of this constant bleeding in the circumstances and the time that she lived, the Jewish people would have seen her as unclean. And they wouldn't want to be near her or touch her or have anything to do with her because that would make them unclean. And this isn't the kind of clean that you can take a shower and just wipe off. This is an unclean that makes it so that you cannot go into the temple and worship God. So you then are impacted by this person's uncleanliness, and then she then also can't go into the temple and worship. So this woman here, she doesn't belong. She doesn't belong anywhere. She has had 12 years of seeking and trying to figure out how to solve this problem so that she can worship God, so that she can belong as a part of a community. And you know, this is something that I think is so great. And if you're not familiar with this story, I want to tell you, she had been trying things and they're not working, but she heard about Jesus. And she heard about this Jesus who is a miraculous man who is doing miracles all over. And so in spite of being isolated and separated and treated terribly, I'm sure, for being unclean, she decides she's going to go out and she's going to get to Jesus. She's going to get to Jesus, and that means she's going to have to go through busy crowds because they were traveling along their way. They had a path to go, but people were following and trying to be where Jesus was too. So it's not like she was finding him on an empty path by himself. She was going to have to push through people and bump into people and rub shoulders with the people who have isolated her and set her apart as the unclean. And so she gets through the crowd. So she makes her way and she gets there, and she gets through the crowd and she sees Jesus, not enough to get to talk to him, but she says, if I can just even touch his garment, if I can put my hand on his clothing, I believe that I can be healed. And so that's what she does. She reaches out and she touches his garment, and she was healed. And so this is amazing. And we could stop right there, and that could be the end of the story. But what I love here is that when she touches the end of the garment, Jesus had knowledge. He knows all things. He knew that she had been healed. He felt the power leave himself, and he could have walked on his way because he was on his way to go somewhere. He had things to do. But he stopped because the need for her healing wasn't the only need that he needed to meet. And so he stopped and he called out to her. He called out to see who he had healed. He had a conversation with her. He heard her. He saw her. He listened to her. He spoke to her. He was aware of her. He saw her so much and spoke to her that he took action to have her be healed, but he also saw a deeper need. It wasn't just the need to be healed from the bleeding. It was a deeper need to be seen, to be heard, to be known, and to be made free in this community. That Jesus would be that bridge maker for her. And Jesus did this not just for the woman who was bleeding. He did it for person after person after person all throughout his ministry. And as followers of Jesus, we're called to be more and more like him. We're called to be people who don't just allow someone who's different to be separated from us, and to not engage them and to not just know about their needs of homelessness, not just to know about their needs of food, but to be aware and to respond and to act. And so if we're going to continue in this process of being more like Jesus, we need to be like him and meet the needs of people. And just as Jesus was aware and was moved to action to reach not just a physical need, but to be aware and take action over our human condition.
As we see over and over again in the text, Jesus took care of that emergency that was happening in that individual's life. But notice what he didn't do. Not once did Jesus try to solve society's problem as a whole. Not once did he enter into a debate with people, well, how are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to solve the fact that the Romans control us? Not once did he try to get rid of the oppressors and say, this is how we're going to do it. He simply took care of the individuals that he came across, the people that he came in touch with. That's what he did. He didn't try to solve his societal problems because he understood the root problem. He understood that those societal problems come from some other problem. And that's what he was trying to do. And it has to do with the human condition. And here's one expression that we find that Jesus tells us what that condition is in Matthew 15:19. It says this. It says, for out of the heart come evil thoughts. Everything evil, everything bad that happens to the people around us, to us, the decisions we make for us, the evil, the bad things, all come from our heart. Not from somewhere else, Not because somebody made me mad enough to do this and do something bad, but it comes from my heart. That's where it comes from, the condition of my heart. He goes on and says, it's from the heart that murder comes. When somebody allows anger to build up and build up and build up and to take action, to actually take a life, that comes from the condition of their heart. He goes on, from the heart comes adultery. When someone makes a decision to break a covenant they made with someone else and to have relationships with somebody else and to come up with story after story after story and lie after lie after lie to hide that, but then it comes out, and then the kids that are involved are ping-pong back and forth, and all the ramifications of that, the beginning of that comes from the condition of the heart. He goes on, the condition, from the heart comes sexual immorality. The things we do, the things we look at, even the things that have happened to some of us have come from the heart, is where it comes from. He goes on and says, from the heart comes theft. You name the theft, blue collar, white collar, identity theft. For some of us, our childhood was stolen from us. And those things come from the heart. He ends with saying, from the heart come false testimony and slander. Perhaps the way we can summarize those two things is just say social media, right? That's the world we live in, though, and that's the condition. Jesus understood, I'm not going to solve society's problems until the condition of humanity is solved. And that's what he was after. That's what he was trying to work on. Our problem stems from the heart. There is no government. There is no government program or government system that is going to make me or you more compassionate, or make me or you more loving, or make me or you care for someone in need more. It's just not going to do that. That's not what government programs and systems do. But I encourage you, take a look at Jesus' ethics. Go look at the Sermon on the Mount, John 5 and on. Go look at how he wants life to be lived by those who follow him. And tell me the world wouldn't be better if we lived that way. Tell me the world wouldn't be better if we loved our fellow neighbor that way. We may not agree with them. We may have different thoughts, but this is how I'm going to treat them. Tell me that Jesus' ethics would not be better for the world. Take a look at it. Will we embrace it? You see, when Jesus came, he came to present a new way for us. He came to present a new way that is all about getting in the back of the line. His way of life is a race to the end of the line, not trying to get to the front. In fact, the way that he came to introduce was known as the way. That's how they referred to it. It was totally different. It turned the world upside down. And the way was all about, Jesus said that the way that I'm bringing to you is all about looking like I look and doing what I do. And are we doing that as followers of Jesus? I invite you to watch this video. You'll see some familiar faces of some of the things that people in our community went out in the community, and their heart was to go and do what Jesus would do. Take a watch.
this way that we've talked about, this way that we saw demonstrated here in the video, this way is fueled by Jesus. And it was demonstrated all throughout his ministry, and really was something that he gave to his disciples, because people would ask him. People would want to know. I mean, I was talking about earlier how I'm kind of a list person. I like to get things done. I make my checklist. I feel accomplished when it's finished. And so I like to know what the expectations are. I like to have a goal. And so there are people who would ask Jesus, what is the greatest commandment? We have all these commandments. What is the greatest commandment? And so he responded to them, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as your...
So.
That's right. This one command, love others as he has loved us. This love can be the bridge that meets people, that gets past our differences that we mentioned earlier. Because we're all going to have different strengths. We're all going to have different abilities. We're all going to have different struggles. We're all going to have different parts of life that we go through. We're all going to have different needs. But the equalizer here, what really sets everything apart, is God's love. It's God's love and our call to love others just as we have received the greatest gift of love from him. And Jesus lived out this love. He lived out this love, though, in the posture of a servant. He demonstrated this in his ministry right up into the end as he's having his last supper with his disciples. You know, the disciples, like we talked about even with the woman as they were traveling, they would walk around and the roads were dirty and they were dusty and they wore sandals. And so they would go around and they would have some really dirty feet. I mean, they'd have some gross feet. And so they were getting ready to have this Last Supper and they're having this time together. But what's interesting here is when Jesus is gathered with them is typically when you would sit at these tables, they're not at a dining room table where they're all seated and you can kind of like tuck your dirty feet under the table and nobody really knows about it. You're sitting in these low recline tables and you are near each other with your feet up and near the bread and near the food. And I don't know about you, but I would want my feet to be clean, and I would want my neighbor's feet to be clean too. And so Jesus knew this need was there. He knew this need was there, and even though he is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and our Savior, and he knew what was about to come and all the things that he was approaching in his life, he got up and he began to wash his disciples' feet. Now, this was more the action of a servant. And so for him to get up and do this was pretty remarkable. It was especially remarkable because he did this just after having a conversation and running into his disciples, having these questions about who's going to be the greatest among us. Like, who do you think's the best here, right? And so the condition of their heart did not match what he was calling them to live out and what he knew they needed to do. And so he took action to work through and demonstrate what a mindset that was in complete contrast to what their heart conditions were. It was in direct contradiction to the way they were kind of feeling and living. And so Jesus made it clear to them through words and through actions that loving others, and loving others just not by saying kind things to them and really liking the people that like you and that are like you, but serving them in humility, serving them without expectations, serving all 12 disciples who had different lots in life and not leaving anyone out or anyone taking priority over another, but serving them in love. And I love that he washed their feet, even though he knew that their feet were going to be dirty again. And he washed their feet knowing that washing the feet wasn't going to solve all the problems of the conditions of their heart and all of the other problems that they may have amongst them. Remember who else was there around that table? He washed their feet and addressed their current need. Their need was for their feet to be cleaned. And he washed their feet and ensuring that their differences around that table wouldn't be what divided them, that he would serve them all, and he would serve them in love, and he would serve them in humility, and have that community with one another.
You know why else we think he washes their feet that night? Well, Pastor Kerry and I think he washed it is because when you wash feet, you have to get close. You can't wash feet from a distance. You have to get up close and personal when you wash somebody's feet, when you serve them, when you love them. And what do we want to do most of the times is we want to step back. We want to step back and look at that problem. Oh, let me send some money that way. Let me send some of this that way. But Jesus said no to his disciples, said no. In order to take care of this human condition, you need to get up close and personal. You need to get involved, because I can sit in my house, and I've done this. I've sit in my house before, and you probably have too, in my sofa, and I'm watching the TV or watching the news or whatever, and I say, well, I can solve that problem. I mean, if everybody disagreed with me, the world would be fine, right? I can take care of that problem, but once I get into the situation, once I get closer to it, I begin to realize the complexities of it. I wasn't always a teacher. I wasn't always a school teacher, and I used to think, oh, I could solve the education problem until I found myself in the classroom. And then I realized all the complexities and all the layers that are involved there, all the problems that the students have, and all the problems they have at their house. I began to learn some things because I got close. And I think that's why Jesus gives us this example of washing his disciples' feet for each one of us to say, yes, the world has problems. Mm-hmm. The way you're going to take care of it, and your responsibility as a follower of mine, is to don't do it from a distance. You have to get up close and personal. We may disagree. We may disagree with that person that we need to love. We may disagree with their politics. We may disagree with their view of the world. But Jesus says, get up close and personal, and look him in the eye, because that person is a child of God, and I love them just as much as he loves me. And I need to see that. I need to see that. And how did we know the disciples got it? I mean, Jesus said to the disciples, wash their feet. And they got it. How do we know they got it? Because we're sitting here right now in 2023 talking about the same Jesus, talking about the same thing he did, because they washed feet. And guess what? The same empire, because they washed feet over time and they took care of the human condition, the heart, one at a time. The same empire that crucified Jesus on the cross is the same empire who ends up embracing his teachings, embracing that he's Messiah. The same empire. And they did it one heart at a time. They didn't change society one big swell election. They said, hey, we're just going to go out and love. We're going to look and act like Jesus. The great news today that I have for you is we have some guests here today. Mm-hmm. We have guests here today who probably could have ran away from certain problems in our world, in our community, and said, I don't have time for that. Mm-hmm. But they did run. They ran to it. And you're going to meet them in a couple minutes. They ran to the problem. They ran to the situation, understanding that that problem is just the result of the human condition. And so we're going to take care of the human condition as well. I want to encourage you to watch this video.
Here at Salem Fields, we are for Spotsy. And one of the ways we do that is by partnering with organizations out in the community who are making an impact in the lives of others. We work with organizations such as the Brisbane Center, a local year-round emergency homeless shelter. The mission of the Brisbane Center is to provide temporary shelter and to help equip residents to resolve poverty and go on to obtain housing. The center has been a critical port in the storm for hundreds who have experienced homelessness in our community. Another organization we support is Hub of Hope, which stands for Helping Other People Eat. The mission of Hub of Hope is to address food insecurity in the greater Fredericksburg region. They have worked to serve more than 200,000 meals to families in need, all at no cost. And we also support the Zoe Freedom Center, whose mission is to empower individuals who are seeking to break free from addiction by providing them with the necessary tools and resources to realize their God-given potential and lead meaningful and productive lives. Some of the resources they provide include a resource center, counseling, support groups, and mobile harm reduction units, vans that go out directly into the community to provide Narcan right to those in need and reach people through education and awareness. With each one of us, we can do more good together than on our own. Together, we can give, serve, and love others. Together, we can be for Spotsy.
You know, I get it when we think of the problems that we face, that we see in the world around us, and we're bombarded with them all the time because of social media and this and that and the neighbors, all that. I get it. There's a lot of things out there. Mm-hmm. And we get bombarded by it. And we can do one of two things. We can say, well, I'm going to shut it all out. I'm not going to do anything. Or we can do the exact opposite. We don't want you to feel this way, guilty, that we got to take it all on. We can't shut it all out, and we can't take it all on. But there's certain things we can do. And what we can do, that's what our encouragement to you is let's together do what we can do. Let's do what we can do together now, and let's simply do it together. We have our ministry partners here with us, and you'll be introduced in just a second, but I really want to encourage you today when we finish, your response is let's go out in the lobby. They're going to be over in the studio, out to the right in the lobby there. Go find out what they're doing. Go find out how they've got up close and personal and how they're helping and how they're changing our community and how they're doing that on a daily basis. Go thank them for what they're doing, please, because we want to support them. They know what to do, and they're guiding us and how we can help. And I really want to encourage you to go meet them, at least say hi, shake their hand, and thank them for what they're doing. But this is why we do For Spotsy, because it's what Jesus asked us to do.
Mm-hmm. Can you all join me in welcoming our local ministry partners? We've got Chris Payton, the Resource Development Officer from Thurman Brisbane Center. Come on up. Thank you for you. And then we have Trent and Dee Stinson, the co-founders of the Hub of Hope. Here, come over here. There you go. Thank you. And Dana and Mark Brown from the Zoe Freedom Center. Come on over.
All of you want over.
You're welcome. We partner with these local ministry partners. We come alongside because we believe that Jesus calls us to have our love lived out. But that we don't have all the same abilities and gifts and strengths, and we were never meant to do it alone. We were never meant to be the only one who is the champion for Jesus and going into the world to seek the needs of others, but we have each other. And so as a church and a community of believers, we are given this great opportunity. And so we have special gifts in here, and we want to support you. And this isn't just a summer support thing that we do here. We at Salem Fields are for Spotsy because we are for Jesus, and Jesus is for everyone. And so even if you're not sure, you don't know much about homelessness, and maybe you're not really comfortable and know a lot about food insecurity, maybe you're really not sure what they can do and what they are doing for people who are struggling with addiction, they're here. And they're here to talk to you because you may have a gifting and a passion and an ability to serve that can partner with them and can be life-changing for people in this area. And what we care about is this human condition. And they are making a difference in the lives of people in our community. We are so thankful that God gave us the opportunity and the privilege to be able to walk with them. And so we're going to have more opportunities, hopefully, to get them each to get to come in and talk to you at length about what they do and how they serve. But today, please, go and talk to them after. And so we're going to respond in going with talking with all of them, but we're also going to respond in a way in community with them and with you. And it's a little different than what we usually do, because we're going to respond with a song. But the words of this song are what I want our heart's cry to be. Because if we're going to be followers of Jesus, and if we're going to be people who live love, who live it out no matter circumstances or conditions or whatever may be in our path, we're going to have to lay some things down. We're going to have to look at our own hearts. And we're going to have to say, not our own will, not our own desires, but God's be done. And so I pray that you'll stand with us and that you will cry out to God, not our will, but his be done, and let us lay it down and serve one another and partner together in love and just praise him for all he's done.
Amen.
Thank you.